My name is Krista Whaley, and I want to talk to you a little about how energetics came to be, how I developed it. And in order to do that, I need to tell you some of the backstory of how I needed to have something like energetics. So when I was 21, I worked at a gas station and I was held up at gunpoint, which was really, really scary. At the time I wasn't scared, but afterwards I lived in fear for a long time. I was afraid for about 8 years. I was afraid of men. I was afraid of the dark. I was afraid of people who were masked or whose face was hidden, so if they had a ball cap pulled down over their eyes. I lived in fear. I was afraid to leave my house. And 2 months later, because I was having a great year, somebody broke into my house while I was home. And he wasn't looking for a confrontation, he was looking for stuff. So when we found each other, he left. I was very lucky. But I didn't feel lucky. What I felt was afraid. So now I was afraid to leave my house, and once I was out, I was afraid to come home again, because there might be somebody in there that didn't belong in there. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD for short. I was told there is no cure for post-traumatic stress disorder. No cure at all, ever. I was told the best I could do was learn coping mechanisms. I would never get over it. I would never get around it. All I would do is learn to handle being afraid all the time. I didn't want to be afraid all the time. It's horrible. It's scary to be in a place where your world keeps coming smaller and smaller and smaller because I'm afraid to leave my house, and then I'm afraid to come home again, and I have to have my dog with me all the time, and that means I can't go into public places with crowds because I can't see everyone, and if you're wearing a hat, you're frightening. None of this is how you want to live. This is not how I wanted to live. So I was seeing a psychologist. She was the first one who told me that there's no cure for PTSD, and that's what I had. I was mostly unemployable because I couldn't work in my previous vocation, which was retail, working with cash, which was scary because people with guns want cash. And I couldn't work with anywhere there'd be crowds, anywhere there'd be people who might be in long coats or hats. Even though the gentleman who robbed me was not wearing a coat, it still was something that I was afraid if people were wearing long coats, they might have weapons. It was very, very dark, dreary world to live in. Now, I wasn't in terrible, frightening, terrified, gasping for breath, fear all the time. There were times when I was less afraid, when I was more anxious and nervous than terrified, but I couldn't work. And if you're in our society and you can't work, you don't have much to live on. So I lived below the poverty line, which meant that I couldn't really seek a lot of professional private counseling. But I've since found out that that probably wouldn't have helped me anyway, because most people believe that post-traumatic stress disorder is not curable because they haven't figured it out, how to do it. So through a series of coincidences, I was really lucky. I saw a psychologist who taught me the beginnings of energetics. And she talked to me about energy psychology, which is the branch of psychology that energetics is a part of. And the things that she taught me were called C-Morg matrix, EFT, or some people notice tapping, and Be Set Free Fast. Now, if you're interested in any of those, you need to go see the video for what is energetics, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about those things. Okay, so she taught me about those things. And in 10 hours over 6 weeks, of sessions, 10 hours of sessions over 6 weeks, I became completely safe in my world. Really, I felt safe in the world for the first time in 8 years, and it took 6 weeks. 6 weeks to get my life back. 10 hours. Nothing. And I didn't know it. I didn't know that I could do it, and it didn't exist prior to that. At that point, the field of energy psychology was about 5 years old, so it was really new. It didn't exist at all when I was seeing a psychologist about my original complaint of post-traumatic stress disorder when I'd first been held up. So now it's about 15 years old, that field, and they've got lots more research about how it works. So we're really excited about that. But in 10 hours, I got over 8 years of fear. I moved to Halifax, all the way across the country when I'd been afraid to leave my house. I live on the west coast. Halifax is on the east coast of Canada. Oh, I have a rose bush. and I didn't know anyone, and I was okay with that. And I got there, and 2 weeks later I took a job working with cash and people. So that was great. I I also, in this 6 weeks, 10 hours of sessions that I was granted with this psychologist, she said, "Hey, we're just about done. Is there anything else you want to work on?" And I said, "Yeah, my whole life I've kind of had these self-esteem issues." And I said, they're kind of conflicting. And I've been looking at them with self-help stuff. I've done affirmations and stuff, but nothing's really worked. But it kind of goes like this. I believe that all people deserve to have happy, fulfilling lives and good things in their lives, and to be surrounded by happiness and abundance. I believe I don't deserve to have happiness or abundance or good things in my life. Anyone notice any conflicts? I am a person, and I realized that it was a conflict, that I'm a person. So she said, "Why don't you go home and try this, write down some things and try it out on your own." And I did. And I spent about an hour and a half going through all of the affirmations I could think of and rating them. And we'll talk about rating if you're interested in either the What is Energetics or the example that you can get by putting your email in the box. Wait, I'm facing the other way. In the box. So I rated them all, and then I did energetics, the beginnings of energetics around it. And in an hour and a half, when I went back to her office, I said, "Yeah, I think I'm over it." And she said, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I'm over it." And so we actually didn't. We talked about it, but we didn't work on it. But I, in fact, got over more than 90%, I would say, of my deservingness issues. And then, once I was in Halifax, I spent about 6 weeks here in Nanaimo, where I'm back in now, healing from post-traumatic stress disorder. And it was a complete turnaround to my life. And then I worked on my deservingness issues. And it was a huge turnaround in my brain. And then I moved to Halifax, and I probably took about 6 weeks to get organized, get a job, all those sorts of things. And then, on the way out the door from the psychologist's office, she said, "Oh yeah, by the way, this can also work for physical problems like pain." And I went, huh. In Halifax, by that point, I had this terrible bout of irritable bowel syndrome. Now, I've had irritable bowel syndrome since I was 2. But I had a terrible bout of it, and I thought, well, what if I use this stuff on it just for a few minutes a day? And so I did for 5 to maybe 10, sometimes only 2 if I had a short schedule. In the morning, I would do a little work on irritable bowel syndrome. And then, after 6 weeks, I said, I don't have any pain. And I went running downstairs. I was so excited, you would not believe. I ran downstairs and I said to my partner, "Guess what? I don't have any pain. My stomach doesn't hurt." And he said, "Okay." And I said, "I don't think you understand. I don't think it hurt yesterday either." And he said, "Yeah." And he didn't understand because he was not the one living with daily pain and discomfort. So even when I wasn't in agony from the irritable bowel, I was uncomfortable with it. And that was completely gone after 6 weeks, and it hasn't come back. And it's been 10 years. And the fear hasn't come back, and that's been 10 years. So I've been 10 years of living happy. In 6 weeks, I healed from post-traumatic disorder. I got rid of my deservingness issues. I packed up my house and I moved to the other side of the country. I spent another 6 weeks getting rid of my irritable bowel, and now I am like 180% different from what I used to be. Yeah, and happy. And happy is good. And I wish for you all of the happiness that I have. So, if you're more interested in finding out about energetics, you can go to the What is Energetics page. You can write me a letter if you want to talk to me personally. I'd be happy to chat with you. You can hit there's a contact us button somewhere up here. I'm not sure exactly where. Or you can just write me an email or Skype me. You'll find that on the contact us page as well. And I would talk to you. Or if you want to actually just try it out, you don't care about any of that, just show me what it does. I want to test it on my own stuff. You need to put your email address in the box up here. And then we'll send you to a page where you can see a sample of energetics, and you can actually try it out and use it on your issues. And I hope that you do, because I am happy to have a whole lot less issues in my life. And I encourage you to also have that in your life. All right. So I hope to see you soon. Bye.